What's up? It's Plugged On. I'm Keith, and we finally made it. Said the Spider to the Fly, the Teen Wolf Season 6B premiere, Episode 611, the 91st episode of Teen Wolf, and the final season premiere ever of Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf is coming to an end. The final 10 episodes are upon us, something that I wasn't sure was ever going to happen. Quick note, my throat's messed up, so I'm probably going to have this water close by because earlier it was really hard for me to talk, so I just don't want my throat to get all messed up, so if I could be taking a lot of drinks, sorry, but it's going to happen. So Said the Spider to the Fly is the kickoff episode to, again, the final 10 episodes of Teen Wolf. And the episode starts off very much like the sneak peek that came out a little while ago of the lacrosse practice. You know, Scott is the assistant head coach, and they're kind of having like the last lacrosse practice before school starts. There's some cool banter between Scott and Coach. Coach can't recognize players based on their numbers, and also he, disagrees and doesn't agree with Scott about giving helpful advice to players instead of berating them. But what's more important with this scene, sorry about that, is Liam's having difficulties. Hayden has broken up with him and has moved with her sister out of fear of her sister's safety, and he's facing doubts again on whether or not he can protect Beacon Hills when Scott leaves. But eventually he gets out on the lacrosse field, and then much like the sneak peek, if you've seen it, he gets hit, he starts to wolf out, and Scott gets over there to help him, but they notice a wolf that's got like bloody jaws coming up close, and Scott tells everyone to get back, and everyone except for a kid named Nolan gets back. And Nolan seems like scared, so Scott, manages to get Nolan back and then flashes his eyes at the wolf. And the wolf takes off into the woods. So Scott and Liam follow, and they find the wolf, now dead, in the middle of the woods, but like spiders start coming out of its eyes and its mouth. And then looking a little bit farther, they notice there's a lot of dead wolves back in the rest of the woods. And then that's kind of, that's the whole thing with the preview. Lydia and Malia are at Malia's house. Malia's going to Paris. That's where she's going, either for school or she's just going to Paris. They never really explicitly say, I don't think. But Malia is completely against helping. She does not want to help. She's like, it's not our problem anymore. There's a funny line where she says, I don't want to deal with wild animal things. I want to deal with, wild guy things, French ones. And it's kind of a funny line because her flight's getting delayed and stuff like that. And she's just adamant to not do it. But the episode really starts to kick off when we go to Eichen House, where Dr. Fenris, again, who's played by John Posey, Tyler Posey's father, him and another orderly are checking on one of the oldest patients at Eichen House, who is the Hellhound, Halwyn. And if you're wondering how the heck do you keep, if Parrish can just burn the mountain ash out of the walls, how do they keep a Hellhound in there? By locking him in a freezer and covering him in the substance that basically is heat resistant. But, as you could probably take a wild guess, he does break out, and then he goes off and does whatever he's supposed to do, which we'll get to. So then for the next good bit of the episode, you see Liam and Mason are trying to figure out, what's going on with the wolves, even though nobody else really thinks that it's necessarily supernatural. At Scott's house, Liam's helping him pack, and Scott tells him to recite the mantra to help him learn control because Liam's anxiety is kind of going far enough where he's not being able to control his shift. And so he says, the sun, the moon, the truth, which is a cool throwback to season 4. It's a nice organic throwback, I feel. About the only thing you could say is like, oh, well, then how come that wasn't in any of the other seasons? But I'm going to let that slide. It was just a cool thing. But at the school, we get to meet Monroe, and she's talking to all of the students and on the seniors for how they're picking their classes, and you kind of get the feeling that she knows more than she lets on, especially when she talks to Nolan, because Nolan was there that night when Scott fought the beast in the library, and he's like, it's not an animal attack. Everybody keeps calling it an animal attack, and then he talks about the wolf, and he says it's a different kind of wolf, so he knows something, and it's kind of let on that she knows something. But at some point during the school day, rats just kind of come out of the pipes and into the classrooms, and people are freaking out. And while that's happening, like, Halwyn's there, and it's obvious that he's looking for something, but he doesn't find it there. And Liam and Mason show up, and they determine that, oh, the rats are coming from the sewers. So when they go down there, they find a rat cake, which is like, just a bunch of dead rats all huddled together, and they get Malia to come down there to look, and she just says, oh, they all got tangled and they pulled themselves apart trying to get away, and that they were all smelled like fear. And, she's still adamant that I'm not helping. Like, I'm leaving. I'm going to Paris, so don't bother me. And we also get a couple cool moments with Lydia and Scott and their mothers. Lydia tries to give her mom, who is now the principal at Beacon Hills, a list of all the supernatural creatures, with the topmost on the list being the ones in the high school. But Lydia's mom ain't having none of it, because she says, hey, you're going away. This isn't our problem anymore. And Scott tries to give his mom like one of Argent's tasers to, for self-defense, and she's kind of reluctant to do it. And she tells him, like, oh, I'll just call Liam. And he goes, well, what if Liam's not available? And she pulls out, like, a bunch of herbs. And it's, this whole thing. It's like, you're going off to UC Davis. You're going to go, heal animals there. You don't need to worry about all this. But, a lot of the problems are still kind of happening. Liam and Mason end up at the hospital at the same time as Halwyn and Parrish. And Parrish sees visions of Halwyn, so he knows that there's another hellhound around, but he doesn't know where he's at. And then while they're there, because there's like a 10-car pileup or something, two of the injured individuals like get in a fight, and Liam tries to get in the middle, and he gets punched and almost wolfs out. So he runs off by himself, and as he runs off, Halwyn kind of hears his heartbeat, and I guess he determines that Liam is who he's looking for. But Liam leaves, and then him and Mason end up at the school later, so Halwyn doesn't get to him. And in one of the other previews, Lydia shows up at Scott's house. They're both going to leave to go to college together, but she starts having a vision, and she's at the high school, and there's like spider webs everywhere. And when she touches the webs, she hears like different sounds of what's happening and of like what's about to come. And so when Scott tries to leave in Stiles' Jeep, she's there, and she says, we can't leave. Back at the high school, Halwyn runs in, and Parrish run into each other, and he goes, you're a hellhound. Who are you trying to protect? What are you trying to hunt? And he goes, you were supposed to ride with the Wild Hunt forever, you let something out, nothing else matters. And so him and Parrish get into a fight, and Halwyn knocks him out. But then Liam and Mason hop in, and Halwyn's like, if the Wild holds Liam against the lockers, and he says, if the Wild Hunt can't hold you, then nothing can. But then he seems to realize that Liam isn't who he's after. So then he knocks out Mason, but then Liam actually holds his own fairly well against Halwyn. But then Halwyn gets up, and he decides that he's gonna leave. And then Liam and Mason end up in the locker room, and they're trying to heal, and Mason's telling Liam, it's okay, people are leaving, things change, it's fine, you'll heal, it's just a wound. But then Liam doesn't seem 100% convinced. So then we're getting towards the climax of the episode, so the recap will be done here in a second. Lydia and Scott end up at Malia's, and Malia's flight to Paris is now on time as she tries to leave, but Scott and Lydia try to convince her not to. Lydia by standing in front of her, but Scott's like, look, I can't stop you from going, but we need you. And it looks like Malia's going to leave, but then eventually she relents and comes back. And they reveal that Lydia, in her vision, she hears that, like, oh, we opened a door to another world and we let something out, And so Malia's like, oh, we'll just put it back. And they're not as convinced because it says there's always a price. And Scott references the Nemeton. And so it's like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be a simple fix. So they go to the school to try to find Halwyn because they heard from Liam and Mason, I assume, that that's where he was. But he's off in the woods. And Monroe is following him. And she has a gun with the bullets. And she shoots him. She thinks he's dead. He gets back up. They fight. She eventually shoots him in the head, seemingly killing him. Eventually, Scott, Malia, and Lydia end up there, and they find the dead hellhound. And there's the line like, "Oh, I thought you couldn't kill a hellhound." They pick up the bullet, and it's a hunter bullet. So it reveals, oh, Monroe is a hunter, which again is something that we've known from the trailers and things like that. So they go to Scott's house, and they're debating calling Stiles, and then Malia's like, he's not going to be happy if we leave him out of this. But Scott plays a voice message where Stiles is really happy to be in Quantico and to be doing what he's doing. And we see some shots of Stiles being in a class, and they're talking about all the stuff that the pre-FBI program that they're going to be working with. And eventually they show that they're looking at going after a murderer, and video footage in either North Carolina or South Carolina, and it's footage of Derek Hale causing Styles to spit his water out. And he asks, like, oh, what are we after Derek Hale for? And he goes, oh, for mass murder. And that's kind of where the episode ends. And then they play the Super Tease. So I'll talk about the Super Tease in a second, but I want to talk a couple other things. So, I'll talk a couple theories along with Super Tease also. They did the top 10 Teen Wolf moments, which I thought was fairly well put together. There's only a couple moments in there that I was like, why is this a thing? The only one that I thought was really weird for them to throw in was Malia and her, like, her reaching Peter in the 6A finale. That was the only moment that I was like, this is a little weird to throw in. I don't know if this is as big of a moment as you guys seem to think. I'm glad they didn't have the first Stydia kiss as a moment. They decided to go with the second one from the 6A finale. And they had a bunch of stuff, like finding out Styles' name, be your own anchor, Derek, you know, and the whole I'm evolving thing, Scott becoming an alpha. And then number 2 was Allison's death, which I was almost angry at, because I'm like, how is this not number 1? But then they had the moment from Motel California where Styles, you know, says, saves Scott's life and says, you know, you're my brother. And I'm like, okay, I can buy into that. But, like, theory-wise, so I have a couple of theories going forward. So I wonder if the involvement of Styles and Derek, I wonder if there's going to be, like, a subplot that they're going to throw in anywhere. Like, I think what I heard is that they're only in 3 episodes. So I'm partially curious if, like, are they only going to be in the final episode, or, like, how is this going to work out? Like, how big is their involvement? Like, is Styles in the background? You know, is Styles in the background? Like, even though he's not physically there, like, will we hear things about what's happening with him? Does he keep the pack informed? Like, or is this going to be something that we actually see? Because at least that sets up that, like, there might be a subplot of Styles finding Derek and the two of them going back and helping eventually towards the end. So that was pretty cool. I'm immediately assuming that Holwyn isn't dead, especially when in the Super Tease there's what looks like a shapeshifter rising up off of a like one of the metal slabs in the morgue, and he's got like a bullet hole in his head. So I immediately assume it's him. So he's not dead. You know, who knows what else is happening. I had this other theory, which was, so I don't know when the 2-year time jump happens. So supposedly there's a 2-year time jump, and probably more likely than not it'll be like at the end of the show, maybe. Though I hope it isn't, just because that would just be a weird. I don't know. I feel like they could use a 2-year time jump and have it be much more effective earlier, like, you know, in the next episode or 2. You know, if they have it happen in the next episode or 2, I think that could be a lot better. But my theory is, so Malia's going to Paris. And so, okay, she's looking to try to find a bunch of French guys in Paris. Well, we know that there's somebody else in Paris, or in France at least, and that's Isaac. And even though Jeff Davis had stated Daniel Sharman is not back, he could be misleading us about that, but he's saying, oh yeah, Isaac's not back. But what if he's not there physically? Like, what if, again, if the 2-year time jump happens and Malia goes off to Paris, what if her and Isaac connect? And then instead of the obvious answers that we already know of, because, you know, Shelley talking about love triangles, what if it's between Scott, Malia, and Isaac? And even though Scott and Malia are the only physical aspects there, like Isaac, you know, she made a connection with Isaac. That's more of an out there theory, but it's an idea. The only other thing is with the Super Tease, they show off a lot more Scott and Malia, which I find a little weird, just because it's like you're really hammering this point home. So I think Scott and Malia will happen. It's just that it probably won't happen the way everybody's thinking. And then there's 2 things that happen in the trailer, which is looks like a berserker at the end of the Super Tease. So, which makes sense. Kate's back, so maybe she'd bring a berserker. But also, Jennifer Blake is in there for like 2 seconds, and it looks like she's fighting somebody. So who knows? Maybe, who knows how this works? I have a couple of theories. I have a couple of theories on maybe how this works. So maybe on one hand, she's just back, because I know like a lot of the villains are back, and they're trying to come up with a cool way to bring them all back. You know, which that could work, but then it's like, you know, there already is a lot going on this season. Maybe that's not the best way. My other theory that I think is more likely is that she's like a manifestation of people's fear. We know that whatever the big bad of this season is, they make people afraid. So what if, you know, when Derek comes back, she's just a manifestation of Derek's biggest fear and his biggest failure in a lot of ways. And that could also work with, like, you know, Liam was afraid of Berserkers, so maybe that's why the Berserker is back. Even though I think it's Scott that's at the end of there. But who knows? We can maybe see. Maybe it's also Scott's fear. The Scott becoming a Berserker, that's like, you know, him becoming a monster, not being the person he wants to be. So that's one theory. The other theory, which I think could be interesting, would be if somehow she's the faceless one. Which would be interesting, and that could honestly maybe work, because it's like, you bring her back, and of course she would want revenge in some ways. And, you know, that could honestly work very, very well, and like, that one's probably even more outlandish than the other ones, but I think it could be possible, because in the Super Tees you see her fighting somebody, but you can't tell who it is. So who knows? It could be Derek, it could be somebody, but it's like, if she's back, yeah, I could get behind her being the new big bad, or like, you know what I mean? Because we already know that that's not her face, so I mean, wouldn't that not be too much of a jump to assume that maybe she is this faceless thing? Who knows? But all I can say is I'm super excited for these last 10 episodes. So, again, so this episode and the series finale I'm going to put on this channel, and there are going to be reviews on this channel. I'm going to review every other episode on my personal channel. I don't know if I'll put a link to it in here, because, I mean, it's whatever, but, you know, just check it out, because I'm going to go through each episode and just go through it, because this has been a show that's been really important, or been a big part of my adult life, and I want to get my thoughts out on every single episode. And then maybe eventually I'll do a video that's like a wrap-up video of the entire series. Or maybe I'll just make that part of the series finale review. We'll see. I don't know yet. I mean, I still have 10 more weeks before I have to decide that. So thank you for watching. You know, like, subscribe, plugged on, all that good stuff. Again, I'll see you on this channel for the series finale. And thanks for watching.